If, like me, you've been skeptical that Joe Biden's declining approval rating is actually because of the Afghanistan fiasco, which I believe is the right decision, but has had significant tragedy within it, I believe you are completely correct. It is not because of Afghanistan that Joe Biden's approval rating started to decline. And today, I want to talk about why Joe Biden's approval rating is actually declining. Now, before we do that, the first question is, has Joe Biden's approval rating declined? Never assume, right? I mean, so if the story is why has it declined? First, let's verify whether it has declined. It has declined. The answer is yes. Joe Biden's approval started around the mid 50s in an average of polls when he took office. It was in the low 50s around mid-June. It is now down to an average of 47. And Joe Biden has switched to a net disapproval, more people disapproving than approving. That is a decline, and it's outside the margin of error. But Afghanistan is playing a role only recently in this. And part of why we know that that's true is we understand how time works. The decline for Joe Biden's approval started in late July. That was reflective, therefore, because it takes a couple of days to put together the polling data and release it. And it's based on what happened before that. Because Joe Biden's approval rating started declining publicly in late July, it means it was based on what was going on in mid-July. The Afghanistan situation didn't take place in mid-July. It took place in mid-August. So because time moves forward and we don't currently have time machines that I'm aware of, something other than Afghanistan started this decline in Joe Biden's approval. So what is it? Why is it that Joe Biden's approval is declining? There are a number of reasons. First, it is typical that presidents come into office with higher approval and then it goes down. That's really common. Why is that? Well, the way a lot of people think is not when asked, do I approve of the way Joe Biden is handling being president? Most people don't say, well, I agree with 8 out of 10 things he's done, so I approve. Many people think if there is anything he's done that I don't like, I disapprove. And so over time, you typically see presidential approval ratings decline. There are instances that are different. When 9/11 happened, George W. Bush's approval shot up. He then squandered it by attacking the wrong country. OK, but it is typical that presidents see declining approval during their presidency. So that's a systemic reality. Now, in terms of what was happening, Joe Biden's decline in approval coincided with the COVID Delta variant surge. Biden's high approval early in his term was riding on being new, but also on declining case numbers and on rapidly accelerating vaccination. Thanks to anti-vaxxers and the Delta variant, COVID is now exploding. Hospitalizations are at a record. Vaccinations have slowed down, although lately they are picking back up. And Biden's approval decline came right as the case numbers went up in late June and early July. Now, in addition, Joe Biden started to really need a big legislative accomplishment. I've been talking about this with you for a couple of months, and he has not gotten it. This has put more downward pressure on Joe Biden's approval. And then after months of all of this stuff, yes, Afghanistan imploded. And even though it was not only the correct decision to leave, but one that most Americans support, the chaotic fallout pushed Biden's approval down further, accelerated by negative coverage of what was going on in Afghanistan. Now, I also believe that Joe Biden's approval is going to go lower before it recovers, if it does, because the latest polling is mostly from before the ISIS suicide bombing in Kabul about 5 days ago. I imagine that Joe Biden's approval is going to get down to the low 40s before it might start to recover. That's if there's a recovery. We don't know yet. Now, even though Afghanistan is currently hurting Joe Biden in the polling, I don't think that Afghanistan will be a factor in 2022. It's a guess. It's still possible. But I believe that the combination of short voter memory combined with foreign policy simply not impacting elections very much, particularly midterm elections, combined with it being Democrats up for re-election in 22, not Joe Biden himself, I would be surprised if Afghanistan plays a major role in the midterm elections that are now just about, 15, 14 months away. I actually think that it's wackier to blame Delta on Biden, which started the decline in his approval, than Afghanistan. Delta rose globally, and in some places like the U.S., it's really bad. Why is it so bad? Well, because of the anti-vaxxers who are mostly Republican, because of Republican governors whose states are not doing well. Now, I agree that the buck stops with Biden. It does. But the truth is, Biden scaled up vaccination. Biden did most things right on the virus, but Republicans called it fascism. And Republican governors tried to block many of the things that Joe Biden was doing. Blame Biden for things that are truly his fault, or at least a result of what he's done. But we know that that's not how politics actually works. So bottom line, I'm expecting a continued decline in approval for Joe Biden before it levels out. But I don't expect Afghanistan to play a major role in the 2022 midterms. If you disagree with me, or you agree, or you're confused, or you don't even know where you are, you can find me on Twitter at dpackman and let me know your thoughts. One of our sponsors is privacy.com. They're giving you $5 when you sign up for their completely free service at privacy.com/Packman. I've been using Privacy for a little over a year now. You've heard me talk about it before. It's a lifesaver, and here's how it works. It takes just a couple of minutes to set up. Anytime you buy something online or on the phone, instead of actually using your real credit card number, the Privacy app and the browser plugin let you give each company a randomized virtual credit card number that you create out of thin air. It'll even autofill the card number with one click. And the payment is taken out of your checking account without the merchant ever knowing your real information. So this allows you to keep your banking information secure, but also to take control of your finances. You can create up to 12 of these virtual credit cards a month. You can set spending limits. You can freeze them. You can delete them anytime you want. So when you do this, it means you're not going to be charged when you don't want to be, because you can destroy the virtual card number right after using it, which, for instance, I love using free trials because I know I won't be charged when the trial is over if I use a virtual credit card number. You're keeping your identity private by not telling companies who you are. You're keeping your bank or credit card info protected against data breaches and identity theft, and it's free. And like I said, you'll get $5 to spend when you sign up at privacy.com/Packman.